till the money runs out, till the money runs out, till the money runs out, till the money runs out. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter from deep in the bowels of our underground lair, which happens to be a lot closer to the border than Kamala Harris or President Biden have ever been. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, yeah.
Good.
They definitely have never been there. I'm not sure they know which direction it is. Did you see President Biden meeting a little week or two ago with all these retailers claiming shelves are stocked and nothing costs any more than it did? And I'd like to ask, has there ever been a more out-of-touch president of the United States? Not in my lifetime, anyway. Yeah. And maybe you want to go back to Martin Van Buren or something, maybe. Okay, but
we all know Bill Clinton was more in touch.
Well,
that was a different.
The guy went to McDonald's at least. I mean, when was the last time you think Joe Biden went to a supermarket and actually bought groceries and brought them home?
Oh, never. He got off at the station 134 on the Amtrak, on Wednesdays.
They met him there
and got Jill's list for 124 years he was serving in the Senate.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how just disconnected that man is. It's really a sight to behold. I mean, we've had a whole year of a part-time president, and we're just, part of me, I like to say we're kind of seeing the results, but you know what? The president shouldn't have that much effect on all of us.
The presidency was designed to be a lot weaker than it is.
Well, over the years, they've just taken it upon themselves, a lot of them. Some of them haven't, let's be blunt, some more than others.
Right.
To, do what they want to, and if their friends are in control of Congress, do what you want. And it's supposed to be a check on the legislative branch, not a monster in of its own, and it's become a monster in of its own.
Yes, it has. I mean, when you look at the bureaucracy behind it and all of the administration and the departments and
the ability to send troops wherever you want to, and there's.
As long as you're not declaring war,
you haven't declared war in about 80 years to the day almost, which is amazing when you consider hundreds of thousands of Americans have lost their lives in countless countries. I mean, I can't even sit here and think of how many. But by the way, I don't know the song.
Yeah.
Of course I don't. It's something about money, and I don't know nothing about money except how to get it and hide it. So you enlighten us, Jay, on Eddie Money. We'll call it. I say Eddie Money did it. Eddie Money sing it.
I know the lyrics. There wasn't a lot there. It was pretty minimalistic of me.
Yeah, no kidding. But, if I'd have gotten that, it'd have been a new record.
I don't know. Obviously, it's called "Till the Money Runs Out." That is the only lyric of the song, over and over and over. But there's lots of instrumental in there.
Is that like a rap one then?
No.
Till the money runs out. Till the money runs out. That's not what it was?
I don't think they run out of money. According to them, there's always plenty more.
Print more?
Plenty more to be had for the party. No, this is by Men at Work.
Oh, I know them.
Off their second album, Cargo.
I know who they are.
Yeah.
Men at Work.
Cargo is a very good album. I know it didn't get as much play as the first one with, Who Can It Be Now and Land of Down Under. But this is the one that had...
That was their first one?
That was their first one, and this was at least their first major label release. Cargo was their second. It had...
so it just goes down like Pearl Jam. It just goes downhill after the first one.
No. Not at all. And Pearl Jam's second album, Versus, I would say is almost as good as the first one.
10 was it called?
10 was the first one, Versus was second. Both amazing albums. I love them both dearly. But yeah, with
am I out of touch for not thinking Vitology was so bad either?
No, it's not bad.
I mean, A Better Man is probably my favorite song from them, and that was on that album.
Yeah.
I know that their first two are the type where... you don't skip over one song and all that kind of thing. And those albums are hard to find.
Yeah.
Few Merle Haggard ones I can think of, but that's about it. And maybe No Fences by Garth Brooks, and that's about all. I can't think of too many where you don't hit the. It's kind of like watching WrestleMania.
Yeah.
There's a couple popcorn matches where you can go make a snack or fast forward. Nobody cares. So, but it's hard to make everything, and it's hard to make everything as good as your best.
Yeah, I mean, but there are a select number of albums where it is just gold from beginning to end, and there's not a bad song on them.
Maybe a few Beatles ones I can think of too, but yeah.
King's X Dogman, yes, the Beatles, I would say. Obviously, some people think the White Album is genius. There's a lot of throwaway songs.
Well, here's the thing. The Beatles, even though they were only together for like 7 years, there's kind of I separate them. There was the Beatles at the beginning, like the mid-'60s, and the Beatles like the Abbey Road, Yellow Submarine Beatles.
Right.
They're different, both good music, but very distinct difference.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion.
I think there's almost 3 stages. You've got the I Want to Hold Your Hand 8 days a week Beatles.
Can't Buy Me Love.
Right? So you've got that. You've got the middle section, the albums like Revolver and really, I mean, there's this transition happening in between Revolver and into Sgt. Pepper's, and
it was like they started with like the happy bubblegum songs, and then it got different.
It got really weird, but then it came into like just genius, And I'm not saying the weird stuff wasn't genius; it kind of was.
Till Oko Yono came and broke them all up, right?
Right, but the stuff at the end is amazing too. I mean, it's mature songwriting. It's just
they evolved.
So
why don't we just say they evolved? I mean, look, if you stay the same, that's where you're a flash in the pan.
Well,
it's
unless you're AC/DC.
Well, okay, you can find an exception or two, but
put out the same album.
How many bands stay the same? And it's like watching a TV show. If it's the same thing every time, eventually you turn it off.
Yeah, and I think also, in the process of inventing and reinventing, you get those creative juices flowing. There are a lot of times, I think, where you just start to get more pop, more palatable to the masses, where you just kind of start off good and you kind of slide into mishmash.
Do you think, though, too, once a band becomes, the Beatles became bigger than anybody, do you think it was kind of like, okay, now that we're a success, let's do the music that we really want to do here? Do you think they could kind of go in any direction they wanted to? Do you think a record company would come in and put the clamps down on something, or a manager, or we'll do what we want to? And they had that freedom at that point that they didn't have to care about the next paycheck or the next,
They did. I mean, for the most part, the record company let them do what they wanted to do, which was nice that they had that freedom.
Yeah, you wonder if that today, music's such a packaged product.
Right. Because like Jeff Emmerich, he wrote a book about the Beatles, and it's awesome because it tells about how they recorded everything from the beginning to the end, and he was in with them for a lot of that stuff. And as a producer, as the engineer running the board and stuff, miking things, and there were stories about John Lennon being just wanting to try crazy things. It's like I want this effect like I'm spinning around the mic, spin me around, and Jeff Emmerich's like, why don't we just plug you into a Leslie cabinet and get the same effect? All right, but they were willing to try just crazy things, and that is part of how they got such a unique sound. I mean, now it's like you go in, you put in your drums, your bass, your guitars, everything's recorded separately. Everything is like just robotically
it's cookie
on
cutter
this grid. You have the vocalist come in and you use auto-tune to just fine-tune everything, rub off all of the rough edges, and you have this packaged product that just is, there's no soul, there's no character, and everything is pretty much the same, and it is bad. You put everything through what they call like a brick wall filter, so that it's not too quiet and it's not too soft, but everything really is pretty much all at the same level, because they use like compression to make sure that the soft notes don't drop out and that it doesn't clip on the high end, but they push it up as high as they can. And so it's lost so much. You know, and the Beatles were awesome at that kind of thing. But you take another band that came later on that I thought had some really good early records, like Def Leppard. When you look at like High and Dry and even into Pyromania, but when they hit Hysteria, there was a shift there. They say that's like the most perfectly recorded album ever. And I don't know if you can argue with that. Everything, it was recorded perfectly. Now, this wasn't on Pro Tools. It wasn't on a computer. I mean, they nailed their parts, and everything was mic'd right, and they used the right tones, and they built this huge wall of like vocal harmonies and stuff like that. But I think it caused something from there on out where everything became about being more marketable, and they lost their edge. And so I think that happens to a lot of bands.
Yeah, I wonder too, if you become super successful, you know, you don't want to screw that up. You know, so it becomes
Right.
about making this person happy and that person happy, and
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
There's a lot of that.
Because
When you make a record, you're borrowing money from the record company.
they're
and-
investing in you.
Right, and then you have to recoup all of that money before you make any money. So if you don't sell enough albums, you are in debt to the record company forever. And you know what? You may not get a chance at a second album if your first one isn't successful, and you may not get a third album if your first two aren't successful. And until you've proven yourself over and over and over, it's become such a cutthroat business. But with the models such as they are, if you're not looking to become a billionaire from making music, you can make a nice living at it. You just have to be able to self-market and be able to raise money to do recording projects. There's just a different way to do it now. You have to be a businessman as well.
Yeah, you got to be outside the box. So
Yeah.
okay,
But anyways,
Jay.
So yeah, that was Till the Money Runs Out off of Cargo. Overkill was the song I was going to mention. I do that song
Overkill.
often. Yeah, that's probably the most famous one off that second Men at Work album. So
Okay,
yes, onward and upward.
Jay, I might have found something that is just in fact, I'd seen this guy before,
Yes.
but I didn't know anything about it or who he was or anything like that.
Okay.
Now, you know, and I'm not going to chew my food 2 or 3 times here, but you know that I loved preachers back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Robert Tilton being my favorite. Oral Roberts out of Tulsa, who twice predicted the world was going to end and he was going to give his life to the Lord Jesus Christ. You know, as if being a preacher named Oral isn't funny enough. Of course, there was Billy Graham back in the day. There was Jimmy Baker. There was Jimmy Swaggart. Pat Robertson, you know, when he ran for president, I remember that. The president of the largest company in the state of Virginia, that was Pat. He used to always say, I used to always like to impersonate him. It's been topped.
Oh.
Now, I didn't think anybody could top Robert Tilton.
Oh boy.
Have you seen the infomercial with the guy with the miracle spring water?
No.
You have not seen that.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I've not seen that.
The guy's name is Peter Popoff.
Oh, I think I've heard of him.
Okay.
I've heard of him.
Okay.
Okay.
He's been around a long time. He's in his 70s.
Yeah.
But he has this thing, Miracle Spring Water. And he claims his miracle spring water will bring great riches. This is kind of a Robert Tilton knockoff, if you want to ask me.
Okay.
But he told this one lady in this infomercial to lay this is so, before you go anywhere, this is so ingenious. And I just wish you and I need to go into this, get a tent or something and go into this. Because I think we could come up with some great ideas.
I wouldn't be a good partner in this.
Yeah. Jay, you're a good salesman, though. I mean, you could do it. But he told this lady to lay her bills out on the table and sprinkle some miracle spring water on those bills. And amazingly, those bills disappeared. They were paid. God came down and shined upon her and took care of those bills because of her faith.
Okay.
There was this big, huge black lady who said, "I got my miracle spring water, and I got a check in the mail for like $6,000." I mean, and he said, "God, it was magic, Jay. The miracle. I'm going to get some miracle spring. I'm going to write to this guy, and I'm going to get some miracle spring water. And we'll sprinkle it all around and see what happens.
Why don't you try that?
We'll see. It'll be like Robert Tilton. You're going to see midgets grow. You're going to feel color. You're going to see sound." I mean, it's just, but this guy has got that. I always say that there's something, and this is kind of a bad comparison. But I'm always captivated by how like a Charles Manson type can get followers and get them to just do anything. David Koresh or whatever his name was, and Jim Jones, and how did they do that?
Well,
and this is I don't want to say this is the same, but it's kind of like just the charisma. This guy has the Robert Tilton charisma on him.
Well. Part of it is
we're gonna just hang on. I'm gonna get some miracle spring water for one of our shows upcoming.
Okay,
and we're gonna sprinkle it all over the table or something, and watch midgets grow and watch all that kind of stuff. We'll see what happens with our miracle spring water.
That's not the way it works. See, this is how it happens because there's an element of truth in what
always
they do.
Always
right?
An element of the truth.
Like with finances. There's a lot of it that has to do with faith. Now, the Bible talks about in the book of Malachi, about giving to God. Will a man rob God? Surely not, yet you have robbed me. And it talks about giving to God and see that I will open the windows of heaven, right? And it's an act of faith where we give into what God is doing, and God, it could be money, it could be provision in other ways, it could be health, whatever, but God opens the windows of heaven to us. And there are other places in the Bible that talk about giving and for the gospel and all that kind of stuff. So it's all biblical principles. But when you try to bottle some water and you call it miracle spring water.
I should also mention that one person claimed that he cured their diabetes.
Right. Now, I'm not saying this stuff doesn't happen either.
Miracles happen.
Miracles do happen, and healing happens, and financial miracles. A bottle of miracle spring that they could have actually happened, but it is not because you receive a bottle of miracle spring water. It's because you have the faith to pray it through, and God rewards that. How do I want to say this? There was something a while back, and I don't remember who did it, but it was like miracle, like I don't know if they were chamois or what they were, but basically you get this in the mail and you're healed. It's anointed with oil and all this kind of stuff. Well, it was based off of the woman with the issue of blood that touched the hem of Jesus' garment was healed. Peter had sent some clothing. His shadow would rest on people that were paralyzed. They would be healed. So there was biblical precedent for it. But those are kind of things where God just works a miracle through Holy Spirit, and it's done. It's not meant to be repeatable. It's not meant to be a formula. God doesn't work in formulas. That's not his thing. Don't just bottle some water and call it miracle water and say that's just like don't cut up a cloth and send it out. it's the faith of the believer and their interaction with God and their walking it out that they have this dialogue with God and God does what he does. And why some people get healed and others don't, I don't know. I'm not God. But let me say that if you're trying to package something and market something, that's not a good idea. Because anytime you put yourself in a place of, how do I say it?
Well,
yeah.
let me just say this. Get on YouTube and watch. I'm going to send them to you.
Okay.
And you got to see the infomercials here. They're the greatest things since the late 80s. Because I view it for its entertainment.
Okay. And that's different.
Maybe that's... I know some people try to pick this apart legitimately, like you're trying to do. And you're making sense to me, but I just...
Right.
I love this stuff. I love it. And I know that's terrible, but I love every second of it. Because I so could have been a preacher. I so could have.
We kind of are.
Yeah, but I mean, I would have gone off the deep end, too.
I guess I am in multiple capacities, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would have gone off the rails, for sure. Especially when I realized what kind of effect I could have had. I definitely could have gone off the rails, without a doubt.
That's one industry where you don't want to go off the rails because you'll never win an argument with the big guys.
But it's all still going on, I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, whether it's who's the other guy, Osling or Austin or something like that. I mean,
he gets a bad rap.
He's not one of these guys.
No, not at
all.
all.
But the mega church, thing is still.
He's got a lot of he's got a lot of people that come to his church. A lot of people find value in it. I don't see anything wrong with that. A lot of people rip these people apart that run these mega churches, and some of them could very well be crooked as the day is long.
Yeah, Scientology for one.
And some of them are not. Some of them just
they all get lumped in the same basket.
They do,
sure.
and I look at it this way. God gives you a piece of the puzzle, and you're responsible for doing your piece of the puzzle. And if you're not doing it like ABC over here, you get criticized for that. Well, maybe Joel Osteen wasn't told to do what ABC does over here. So he's got to do his thing. And as long as he's not stealing from people, as long as he's not, people criticized, what's his name? For having like airplanes and stuff like that, but a lot of his ministry is done on airplanes. He sends people to different parts of the world. He loaned it to Mercury One and the Nazarene Fund to help with the effort of getting people out of Afghanistan after that debacle. So, I mean, we just really have to watch, and because there's so many internet rumors about preachers, and
the internet's open.
We have to find the truth, because anytime, the Bible talks about not talking bad about God's anointed, we have to really understand that who we're talking about and know the truth, not just listen to internet rumors. So.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Kenneth Copeland. That's who I was thinking of with the puns.
Okay. Anyway, there's peterpopoff.org where you can request.
Yeah.
Do not ingest the miracle spring water, though. Just remember that.
That means he scooped it up out of some local river.
Maybe.
Ugh.
But it's a faith tool to remind you of God's amazing and miraculous power. You are not alone. You are a sinner. And God is with you, and I am praying for you to experience his amazing and awesome love, healing, and strength. CJ, I could do this no problem.
Yeah.
All right. Enough of that. But I'm gonna sign up here. We'll see what happens when I get my miracles. I'm gonna lay my bills all out on our kitchen counter, and I'm gonna sprinkle some miracles.
Because you're doing it from a standpoint of entertainment and not faith.
Well, wait a minute here. I mean,
Yeah.
I always say this. I mean, Pat Robertson would have. We talked about Bob Dole last week.
Yeah.
Pat Robertson would have healed Bob Dole's arm. I'd have believed anything he said. I mean, come on here. You got to see it sometimes. So, all right, Jay.
That is true.
we digress.
Yes.
We digress, and we digress some more.
Okay.
Jay, I hate to break it to you, but we live in the great state of Minnesota.
Yeah, I know. I've been here all my life, so.
And me too.
Yeah.
And when the state of Minnesota sends out a budget forecast, it's always good, bad, and ugly. Actually,
it's never good.
It's bad, worser, and uglier.
Yes, worstest.
Because whether they have not enough money or too much money, their speeches on tape come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I get ticked off and angry and just wonder if these people how these people don't realize they say the dumbest things on the face of the earth as they say them. Just diarrhea coming out of their mouth.
Yes.
When we get a budget forecast. But I love how the media goes along with it.
Yeah.
How
I do.
we have a $7.7 billion surplus in the general fund. Now, Jay, let's remind everybody what that means.
That means you paid too much in taxes.
Okay, that means every single department, employee, you name it, is getting every cent plus more because of baseline budgeting and the automatic increases that are put on that. And when all of that is paid, there's $7.7 billion laying around. Now, Jay, let me ask you something. Mm-hmm. If I walked into the grocery store, and let's pretend that I bought $65 worth of groceries.
Yes.
And I gave the clerk 4 20s.
Okay.
Now, for those of you who went to Armstrong, that would be $80.
Yeah.
Now, can the cashier and the manager at the supermarket and the owner come up to me and say, we're thinking about funding some things around here and maybe rebuilding something. So we're going to keep the surplus $15 and put it away in a rainy day fund and give you nothing in return, or give you $5. Yeah, $10 we're going to put away in our little lock box over here. And can they do that?
No, they can't. In
Isn't
fact,
that weird? How government is the only institution on earth that doesn't have to give you your change back.
In fact, I believe it was Chipotle when there was a national coin shortage that got into trouble for not giving change back. They were like, "We can only accept exact change. You will not receive change for."
There were a couple
over.
companies who tried that,
and they got in trouble for that.
But from the same government that doesn't give you your change back themselves.
Right.
It's kind of like the state government will impose what do you call it? That much a cap on that.
Yes.
They never put a cap on themselves.
Oh no.
Levy
No.
limit. That's what it's called.
Yes.
They put a levy limit on somebody else, but never themselves. Now, the reaction has bordered from hilariousness to idiocy to anger to whatever you want to call it. The government responses to this, quote, in a press conference the other day, I'm getting this from NPRnews.org under the title State has a $7.7 billion surplus. Quote, the governor, this is good news for Minnesota. It is. It's good news that you stole $7.7 billion?
Remember, they're saying it's good news for the government of Minnesota.
Oh,
yeah.
It's not what the governor says, but
Yes.
okay. This is what responsible policies look like. This is what happens when you invest in people. Really? So says the guy who shut businesses down and shut schools down and, kept all the major corporations open. That's investing in people. Just so you know that.
Aren't people investing in the government if they're sending their taxes in for programs and things like that? It's the other way around.
And of course, the governor had just great brand new ideas
Yes.
with this money. Walz suggested that the money could be used to provide Minnesotans with paid family and medical leave,
What?
improve child care, lower the cost of energy. Well, how is that going to happen? What are you going to do? Rebate somebody's energy bill? And
Shut down the oil industry so nobody can go anywhere?
I don't know. I mean, well,
Yeah.
Majority Leader Jeremy Miller of Winona, who I would love to play in a game of poker because that guy would fold before he saw his cards. The top priority of Senate Republicans this session would be to provide additional tax relief to Minnesotans across the state. Notice that he did not notice what is missing in that statement. Provide tax relief,
Right.
meaning what exactly? Notice he didn't say give the surplus back.
No.
You know, House Republican leader Kurt Doubt said the state should be careful about creating new ongoing spending programs. Hey, just be careful about it. Don't not do it.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do it, hey, let's do it carefully. And let's all sit around and do it very slowly just so we're careful. You look both ways before you cross the street. We'll carefully do it.
Right.
Let's not overspend. Oh, okay. Let's not overreact. Yeah, we're all overreacting to it. Let's work together to decide the right approach. And yes, we do believe the government is collecting more money than it needs from Minnesotans. Well, oh, wow. What a revelation that Mr. Dowd has come up with. I mean, where did you get that from? Would that acorn fall and hit you in the head?
You know, if this were to happen in the financial industry and financial advisors were collecting more than they were allowed to, they would go to prison.
Yeah, or if somebody was skimming more money off the top than they were supposed to. I mean,
Yeah.
there are risk factors in this forecast. Ooh, the continuing fight with COVID-19, supply chain issues, which the president says doesn't exist, inflation and interest rates. No one is certain what will come of a major federal spending plan. Oil prices and labor market are additional things to watch. None of which has anything to do with the fact that the government collected $7.7 billion more than it needs. I mean, not a single drop. What's that got to do with, what has a big spending bill in Washington got to do with Minnesota's budget, other than give them more free money?
Which it's doing. We went over the
the
infrastructure
COVID,
bill. And the COVID relief bill. And if they can pass this Build Back Worser bill, then there'll be even more money flooding into this state to buy people off. And when does it end?
And if you think business groups are not in favor of big government, business groups are already lobbying to head off a hike in unemployment taxes. Well, if we're collecting $7.7 billion more than we need, who would propose a hike in unemployment taxes?
Right.
I mean, that ought to be crazy. What? It's, but don't worry, Jay. House Republicans, they're on board.
I'm sure.
So they're fighting for us. And I'll tell you what, you want to take the cake in absolute craziness? You want to take a step on the Twilight Zone or in any other galaxy you could possibly think of? You cannot be more warped than Arthur Fonzarelli Winkler III Jr.
The next attorney for the county of Hennepin.
Boy, God help us. Here is what he wrote on Twitter. Democratic policies work.
What?
When workers, families, and small businesses get help, the economy booms. Sir, the opposite has happened. Mm-hmm. The rich have gotten richer. Workers are the people your governor screwed. Same thing with small businesses. This is the time to double down on our support for working Minnesotans with paid leave, child care, housing, infrastructure, and better schools. Not a single Democratic policy has resulted in any of those.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean,
But you want to talk about somebody who is just effed in the head? This guy has. I mean, his hair don't move, and I respect that. But I mean, you got to be beyond nuts to believe what he believes.
well, as somebody who runs a small business, because he said when small businesses get help, the economy booms. I don't want help. I want you to get your hands
What is
off.
help?
Get your hands
What are they
off of
doing
my
to
business.
help?
Stop making it so that I can't work and get out of the way. How about that? That is the best way government can help me as a business owner. Go away. Get your hands off of me. Get your regulations out of my life and stop helping.
Yeah, and Jay, I'll tell you what. Lawmakers don't return to the Capitol until January 31st. I'm going to tell you something. That's too soon.
That is too soon. I was
mean,
going to say.
what year?
Hopefully
What year?
2025.
Yeah. They'll be aiming to finish by mid-May. Oh, God. Think all the damage they can do in 3.5 months.
They'll be aiming to, but how many special sessions will there be because the Democrats don't have enough spending?
Well, I'll
They
tell
don't
you
have
what.
all the money they want.
Here's the thing. They can punt it technically because the budget does not end until June 30th of 2023. They don't have to have all the answers to this. They're going to hit the campaign trail in May, and we're going to go through an entire year. You got the House and Senate up, along with all the constitutional offices. It's a rare year.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time since 2002 that has happened, all because of redistricting. Because in 2012 there wasn't a governor's race.
Right.
So I mean, it is everybody's on the line, and you're going to see. And I'll tell you what. I have just had it with Education Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I did a long time ago. They put out ridiculous statements. Like they now are demanding that part of the surplus be paid to them in bonuses for being essential workers. I'm like, you a-holes, shut down schools, wouldn't go back to work. You had the governor in your pocket. He did whatever you wanted.
Kids are still in masks.
3 school years have been affected, and now you want pay as an essential worker?
I will pay you not to go to work.
I would pay to have every one of you quit. That's what I would do. I'd pay every one of you to go away. How about that? Take the whole surplus, the whole education system can take it and run.
Yep. Close them all down. That's the best thing that could happen to this state.
Now, Jay, with these buffoons, running the state on both sides, I hate both parties.
Yeah.
I think they both stink. I can guarantee you that I'm going to, first off, you and I want to have a little discussion here on what we think we ought to do with all this. And do what the legislature and the governor are not going to do, and that is fundamentally rethink taxing and spending and the relationship, especially to local government. And then I'm going to share what I think's going to happen. Because what you and I are going to talk about, we're dreaming. Okay,
right.
We're beyond dreaming. When we talk about what should be going on here, I mean, a real frank discussion about how we tax, how we spend, the merry-go-round of money, as we always call it, these formulas that have been sitting there for 50 years unchanged. I mean, let me start with something like local government aid. Okay, something that I don't like philosophically.
Nope.
I don't like the idea of creating a pot of money somewhere and trying to, quote, divvy it up fairly, because that's not possible. Again, it's socialism. That doesn't work. Okay? There's no way to do it. We've been doing this for I don't know how long, and it's never enough. It never works. It hog-changed some local governments to the state. Other than doing away with it, though, which is not a bad idea, fundamentally, what has to change with something like fiscal disparities or local government aid? I mean, if you had to make changes but you couldn't get rid of it,
Yeah.
how would you do it?
Goodness.
I mean, the first fundamental problem is you got 3 cities eating up most of the money.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth.
and these are cities with special taxing powers,
Mm-hmm.
huge taxing bases, sports stadiums, blah, blah, blah. Why they're getting, and again, it's all part of the money going to urban areas at the expense of everybody else.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it, quote unquote, fairly, how does anybody look at that system and call it fair?
Yeah, I have no idea how you call that fair. Sure, most of the people live in Minneapolis and St. Paul. I get that.
About 10% of the population. It's actually not what you think.
Yeah.
10, 12%. It's not that much. It was like triple that in the 50s.
Right. I mean, if you're looking at the state as a whole, that's true.
Yeah.
If you're looking at concentrated population centers, okay, that's where most of it is.
True.
But still, spreading, I guess, spreading things out. I don't know. I'm against the whole concept of it, and I'm having a hard time reimagining it in a way that I like. Because I can't really think of another option other than do away with it. People should be responsible for the government that they have.
Okay, but let me throw a curveball into that, because one of the things in statutory government is they're responsible for public safety. They're responsible, they put mandates out. The state puts mandates out.
Yeah.
And then tells the locals to go do it themselves. I mean, is that another thing that has to? I mean, here we're giving money to Minneapolis for public safety. At the same time, they're just trying to destroy public safety.
Yeah.
So,
they shouldn't get a single dollar until they get their act together over there.
Yeah, it is hard to reimagine. I think one thing that I would like to see is a demand that the city budgets be self-sufficient. In other words, if you're getting money from the state, it is not to go to essential services. Essential services go from citizen to city hall. Okay, they don't go to St. Paul and have that divvied up into 10 slices of pizza, and then have a few slices thrown back at you. And you and I have preached that LGA should not go directly into the general fund. If it has to go somewhere, it goes to projects. You don't have to bond, or it goes to something like that. I mean, that's really, to me, one thing I would really push for. Now, some people will say I'm pushing a mandate down on local government. No, I'm telling local government that you got to be responsible for your own stuff.
Yeah.
And that if extra money comes in, it is not to be thrown at something. It is to be put aside either for capital projects or for something of that nature, so that your essential services are self-sufficient. Because if you're relying on the state for your fire department, okay, you're in trouble.
Absolutely. Anything ever happens where that amount changes?
It has before. It's gone down in the past when we've had deficits. So, I mean, I think it's insane to take something like police and fire and hog chain it to the state budget.
Right. Well, I think if you're living beyond your means as a city, and whether that is through accruing large amounts of debt, or whether that is spending more than you've got in the hopes that you're going to get money from the state, either way, it's very bad fiscal management. You have to plan what you know you have. You have to plan on what you can count on, and anything else that comes in, then let's look at some other things we weren't planning on doing. Let's get ahead of the curve a little bit. But you do not. It's like, oh man, I don't have enough money to get this TV, but it's on sale today. It's cheaper today if we get it now. I mean, this is the argument they make with bonds, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's cheaper to borrow the money now because of the interest rate.
Take out that credit card.
Right. So let's get it, because I know that I'm going to be able to pay it off over the next 5 months as as I pay off my credit card bills. Except when you go home and then you go to work the next day, you find out you lose your job and you don't have any money. Now, government, of course, can't lose their job. They are the appointed head of the city or whatever. And to quote a dear friend of the show, anytime that we need money, we can tax their butts, right? So
to cover our butts.
To cover our butts. We can tax them to cover our butts. And that's what they're doing to you.
Now, Jay, you
Yes.
saying that brings me to change number 2.
Yes.
You're almost reading my mind. And when you talk about local governments not managing right or not having enough to cover their expenses, there's a
Yeah.
reason for that.
Okay.
And part of it's in state law, and we're going through it right now. And that is the process of putting out their levies. Okay? They decide what they want to spend, then they figure out how they're going to get it. See, when you set a levy,
Right.
it's the opposite of how you do it anywhere else. You don't figure out what you have first.
Right.
You figure out what you want to spend for next year, and then you go, okay, so how do we get it?
Yes.
So, but part of that is built in state law. Part of that is forcing a municipality to set a levy. Sports forces them to deal with the expense side of the budget first.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a problem. You deal with the, like at home. You make X amount of money a month, and you figure out how to, this much for rent, this much for the car payment, this much for getting drunk, this much for blah, 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 and this much for food, whatever. You don't do your expenses, then give your boss a bill.
But, I mean, that problem starts really with the federal government and the state.
Yeah,
in the way that
it
they do
feds
business.
too. Yeah.
That's it. That is the way that they figure things out.
It's always been backwards.
Yeah.
So, but that's, to me, that's another change that has to be made. This idea that you have to go set a levy, and the idea that the levy is, people think this is the be-all, end-all to local government finance, which I think part of the reason they think that is because of the focus that is put on it. Mm-hmm. And it's backwards thinking. So the whole idea that we're going to maybe do this the right way this time, do that. And I'll tell you something else too. I'm curious to get your take on this. Going back to infrastructure, cities doing city things, counties doing county things,
Yep.
and state doing the state things.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's flaws in that.
Mm-hmm.
Gas tax here in Minnesota. 9% of that money is thrown at municipal street aid.
Yeah.
That's something that has to be done away with as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what the perfect fix is, but I know sending it to St. Paul, putting it into a formula nobody understands, and trying to spit it back out to 853 cities does not work.
After the state government has took their cut.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know how much tax money we lose every year to employee costs and benefits from the people
Administration.
that are the people that figure out how to rearrange and dole this stuff out.
Well,
I've never seen those
Take the
numbers.
whole budget department. That's all they do all day. Is
Yeah.
figure out how to screw this guy and give money to this guy. That's all
Yeah.
they do.
I'd like to know how much of our tax money is getting spent on that.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about it this way. You can lower the gas tax a little bit, and you can, again, bring the direct money directly to, a city
Yeah.
that can do that. Not now. I don't want cities to impose their own gas tax. It's not what I'm arguing. What I'm arguing is that it is absurd that somebody in Pequot Lakes is paying for a road in exclusively in Red Wing.
Right.
That's not. However you divvy it up, it's not fair.
No.
Impossible to be fair. I also think if there was a run on this money, you would not see all these complete streets, all of these little things they put in there because they got the money to spend.
Right.
But if they had to spend the money and spend less, the focus would be on roads, not on, a lane for old people and a lane for young people and a lane for bikers and a lane for tricycles and a lane for skateboards, whatever else we do here.
Right.
So, you take that incentive away to do something like that. So I call for that 9% to be gone and for that part of the gas tax to be removed.
Okay.
How do we like that so far?
I like that.
So no more municipal street aid. No more of that. Because like I said, it's socialism. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It never works.
Nah.
Jay, how about one of our other favorite things?
Yeah.
If we got a $7.7 billion surplus, tell me any scenario in which we need a bonding bill.
0. If we've
They're
got extra
already
money,
talking about one for this year. It's already being bantied.
if a single Republican votes for it,
they
they deserve to be.
They need 60% of the vote in both houses.
Yeah.
If the Republicans wanted to kill a bonding, but they could have killed every bonding bill for the last 65 years.
But they tend to tie keeping the government open to these bonding bills and to the budget. And
they're all bought off. They're bought off by a project in their district or some other crap like that. But the idea that we are even scratching our heads with bonding bill. And you and I have had fun going through bonding bills and past shows, and I don't know what episodes they were, but
fun is one word for it.
Yeah.
Coronary is what some people would say instead.
Good old money going to the New Hope pool and all those state things that the bonding bill goes.
Yeah.
But I mean, all I know is the last bonding bill passed the Republican Senate 64-3.
Yep.
So if you don't think that it's possible we're going to have a bonding bill this year, I'm telling you, there aren't 10 votes against it.
Probably not.
So, but I mean, there has to be, the Constitution's got to be changed or something. I mean, something has to happen so that, because you got to remember, we're still paying off bonds from 10 years ago. I mean, this is not going to go away anytime soon, these expenses. So, I mean, we're paying off who knows what with this on top of writing new ones.
Yeah. Well, and I would say it doesn't matter whether you live in a Republican or Democrat area. If you are tired of this, you need to be writing your representatives, your senators, state representatives, and saying, you have $7.7 billion of our money. We want it back. Not another cent, not another bonding bill. Give it back.
Well, good luck with that. Interesting. What is the SC Times? What is that?
St. Cloud Times.
Oh, okay. They've got an opinion piece with a $7.7 billion budget surplus. Minnesota needs to look at tax policy.
Yeah.
I'm going to find it and send it to you just because it's just so wonderful.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, that's the thing. All these cities are on board. The corporations on board. The cities are on board. The counties are on board. The school districts are on board. They all want a chunk of it. The teachers' unions are on board. The other unions are on board. Yeah, everybody wants their piece of the pie. And that's really the environment that we've come to live in now is how do I get the piece of the pie? How do I get my piece of the pie? And it's like a feeding frenzy of piranha that are after some lame cow. It's and we just sit there and we watch, not being completely powerless to do anything to stop it.
Okay. St. Cloud Times. You want to know what they want to do with the money?
I don't know if I do.
After we put money in the rainy day fund, the first thing they called for is to fully fund mandates already on the books. Now, Jay, it's a catch-22 there.
Right.
Because you fully fund a mandate, okay, you've now moved the budget when you don't do zero-based budgeting.
Right.
You know what I'm saying. We've moved that.
Right.
Step 2 should be finding out which levers of the state machine can be adjusted to reduce the monetary stockpile while not jeopardizing state operations. Well, if everything gets every cent and you have $7.7 billion left over, what state operations are being jeopardized?
I don't know.
Who wrote this crap? Step 3 is making those adjustments to leave more money in the wallets of Minnesotans. But of course, here's the thing. Only certain Minnesotans. Not everyone.
Yeah.
People all want to reward their friends. You know, whether that's one business getting something and another doesn't, one person who does something. I mean, waste should be eradicated in spending. Oh, no kidding. Wow, that's a new idea. I haven't heard that before.
Right.
We should get rid of waste. Well, when does that ever happen?
Well, I tell you, there was the one time when Jesse Ventura was governor where we did get checks back.
That's true. That was 1999, 2000-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't...
Yeah, let me...
I did get a check, and I don't recall it completely, but...
Yeah.
I don't know what it came from, but... yeah, that's right. What was it? It was a rebate?
Did they call it a rebate?
You just wait till those rebate checks come.
I think it was.
Yeah.
What do we call that? I'm going to see if I can find an article on it here.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, though. Education is where I think I'm most concerned. That's where we spend the most.
Yeah.
And you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see a pilot voucher program.
Yeah.
Now, good luck getting either party to agree to this. The Republicans will talk about it. They won't do it. Democrats would never entertain giving you any freedom. But this is something, I tell you what, the Republicans ought to stand with this like they stand with no new taxes, even though they never propose anything else. We should, because here's what's going on, Jay.
Yes.
A lot of people have left the public school system. And I think the government is holding back info on it. Quite frankly, I think it's worse than you possibly think it is.
Yeah.
A worse meaning for them. But the people who are leaving have the means to leave.
Yeah.
You know, either they're going to a private school, being homeschooled, they have a parent in the home, they got lucky and they got drawn at a charter school, whatever. Leaving behind those who don't have the means.
Right.
And the problems are getting worse and worse and worse. And I think it's going to be a long time before we realize how bad the situation really is. So we need to level that playing field somehow. And the way we do that is not to throw money at schools that suck. The way to do that is to put the power in the hands of individuals.
Yes.
And here's what I want. You give me, by whatever your measure it is, the worst school district in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't say it out loud, okay? But you know what the top 5 are. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And you give me the worst one. And you give me 50, 100, 200 families that you will empower to shop for the best education that you can find.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why we can't do this. If we have 11 million job openings and Minneapolis can start universal basic income, I don't understand why something like this can't be tried.
Yeah.
Now, let's try it and let's fairly judge the results.
You know why? Because the teachers union won't go along with it, and they're all in the back pocket of the teachers union.
Yeah, well,
That's why you got to get the unions out of there before you're ever going to have any luck at.
Here's what I don't get too. Why doesn't some rich guy do this? I mean, instead of giving your money to stupid environmental causes, why doesn't a rich guy start their own voucher program?
Yeah, why
You
not?
can still write it
Like
off
a
on your
scholarship.
taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, go and create your own empire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're a conservative and you're super wealthy, instead of giving money to Liz Cheney, why don't you take a few mil, which is nothing to a rich person, and get your own pilot programs or open your own school.
Yeah. Do it right in the middle of an urban area.
Yeah, don't give money to Jeff Johnson. Start your own pilot program yourself. Maybe that's something we got to get these rich guys together to do. I mean, I want to keep people with like the last name of Gates out of there.
Right.
But I mean, let's start your own thing. If the government won't do it, okay, in the way the current makeup is, they're not.
No.
Then it has to be done somehow on its own, and show those results.
Yeah.
And just what are they doing? What do they do with their money?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, the financial reporting for school districts or for cities or counties really is so unclear that the average person is never going to be able to figure it out, so they don't know how badly they're getting taken advantage of.
Well, it's just horrible, no matter how you look at it. How about your favorite thing, Jay? The Met Council.
You put me in a bad mood, Andrew.
Yeah. What do you want to bet fully funding transit projects will be another? Did you see what East Metro Strong tweeted out the other day?
No.
That 68% of their new proposed high-density housing will be within half a mile of established transit.
Well, of course it will.
So all the transit nobody's riding is close to new high-density housing.
Right. Right. So all those people that take the train into St. Paul, that'll help them when they commute from Woodbury to Lake Elmo.
There's all those people doing it. All six of them
Out to Lac St. Croix. Yeah.
Just imagine if we got rid of the Met Council, what the state surplus would be right now, too. Just think of it like that. Think of how crazy it would be. Yeah, that merry-go-round of money, I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you what I fear is going to happen, though. What I fear is going to happen is you have a feeding frenzy on who can get what, and nothing will fundamentally change. I mean, take taxes, take the local angle out of it for a second, Jay.
Okay.
Take how taxes are collected. We both know that there's more efficient ways to do that than others. We know there's progressive ways, there's regressive ways. There's a lot of things I think that can be changed and tweaked. It requires nobody to sign pledges and all that crap. But ultimately, how about going to a state like how New Hampshire does it? No income tax, no sales tax. Everything is funded through property taxes. A real wealth tax, if you want to be honest with you. I mean, if you really wanted me to be honest, no loopholes, no write-offs, no sending money to a foundation and getting credit.
Yeah.
No child care exception. I mean, you want to simplify. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the right way to go for everybody, because there's pros and cons to property taxes, especially as they manipulate housing prices. Okay? But where are the big picture ideas to fundamentally change how we because we do have constitutional duties at the state. Where is the fundamental vision of doing anything different?
Yeah, I don't know. government doesn't come up with new ideas unless they get them from government think tanks, in which case it's always more government. So,
I love how they're called think tanks when they don't think all that much.
Oh, no.
So are we in line to see a bunch of cities and counties whining that they're not? And you know what disappoints me so much is how everybody's just on board.
Yeah.
Left, right, business, government, local, they're all on board with, oh, give me that free money.
I mean, you see some comments about, with inflation such as it is, the money should be going back to the people or whatever. But they're going to look at ways to do it by maybe cutting taxes or doing this. It's not, or they'll say they saved us because they prevented a tax from happening, or that's the way it's going to come about. It's not going to be a check like Jesse Ventura sent. It just won't be. Of
course not. I mean, you just think government actually sending us a check when they can actually pay for it.
Yeah.
The opposite of what's gone on with the federal government over the last 2 years, which they've done everything the opposite way.
Right.
I don't know. I think local governments are in. Here's the other thing too. People have to remember this is one-time money, and it never works out that way.
Right.
You'll get one. Of course, nobody cuts their spending at the local level. They just go, oh, the state's screwing us.
Right. So this is what we were baselined at last year. Now we're not getting that.
Right. So now it's up to you to pay the rest. So the surplus leads to higher taxes everywhere rather than the opposite of what you think would happen.
Right.
So, I mean, I fear this. I fear a surplus much more than I fear a deficit. Because I think with a deficit, there's no expectations. There's no clamor for this or that. But what disappoints me is how many local city, school districts, counties, chambers of commerce, so on and so forth, are all for divvying up and spending that loot.
All of them.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. I don't see any group that's standing up and saying, keep your hands off my stuff. I don't see anybody. And it's disheartening because how many times do we have to sit here and watch this play over and over and over and over and over, and we don't do anything about it. We don't primary these people. We don't put new people into place. And the ones that we do send are just as bad as the ones that came out because they don't have a foundation. They never, in most cases, went through local government. They, just get thrown into the foray and they trust their leaders, so they get trained the wrong way and they don't do anything different. They want those committee assignments. They want
to build a career for themselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what you do to change that other than getting rid of the existing group, get rid of that status quo and rebuild it with different people.
Yeah, I'm trying to read what the League of Minnesota Cities is saying. They're not saying a whole lot.
Well,
right now, but I am sure they'll have plenty to say.
Yes. How can that money most benefit the cities? Because that really is their stance on everything. How to get that free money. Well, here's a whole boatload of free money that they can get from the state. So how do you position yourself to get that free money from the state so that you can do X, Y, Z?
Yeah, I mean, it will be, everybody just trying to get their piece of the pie, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And again, it's such a short-term way of thinking. It's almost scary to see how Minnesota Cities Group sets its sight on state budget surplus. Radio for Wright County, AM 1360 is where I'm getting this. Local governments in Minnesota are eyeing some of the state's whopping budget surplus that's approaching $8 billion. Now that's the new spin we're going to round up. Bradley Peterson with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. Oh, one of our favorite groups.
Yes.
says during the budget session earlier this year, his group did not ask for an increase in local government aid, knowing the state would have challenges with COVID. He says, thankfully, the dire economic predictions did not come to pass, and inflationary costs have put new pressures on cities in providing government services, so the group has suggested $90 million as of an increase as a, quote, good starting point. So you want to know what they're doing, you want to know what they're proposing, there you go.
Yeah.
Right there. I mean, and again, it's up to these people who are in these groups to rein these people in, and they're not going to do that. I mean, come on. I mean, it's crazy what $90 million is a good. Now remember, that's after getting all the LGA that you promised.
Yeah.
They want more. Got to have more. So, I mean, here's another thing I'd love. I'd love to, you know what I'd love to do too?
What?
Increase the surplus by telling the DNR to take a hike.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, the DNR take all the fun out of everything. Hunting, fishing. I mean, there's a lot of communities in greater Minnesota that rely on resorts, travel, that kind of thing. And God, I would just love to do something where we just junk that and throw it in a lake, and it just sinks to the bottom, and it just never goes away again. So,
yeah. Well, there's a lot of departments, I think, at the state level that we could probably do that to, and we wouldn't miss them, not for a day.
Yeah. The Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, MAPE, who they are, said its members want the state to expand direct care services, what is this fully fund stuff? What does fully fund mean? I'd like to know. And of course, Education Minnesota wants to make a larger investment in public schools.
Yeah.
Facing staffing shortages. Cities in greater Minnesota would like to see a larger share of state aid. I mean, it's all just a feeding frenzy.
Yes. Oh, it's awful, I don't even know where to begin on this stuff because the problem is so pervasive. And like I said before, I mean, the state has it, the counties want it, the schools want it, the cities want it, and they're willing to do anything to get it.
Now, I have to figure out if you and I can figure out the state budget.
Yeah.
If you and I can figure out that when you spend and spend and spend, you increase the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
I have to figure out that they know that too.
They do.
So aren't we setting ourselves up for a huge government deficit in the near future by spending everything and creating a new baseline, billions of dollars higher than where we are now?
Yeah, I believe so. Unless they're dumb enough to think that we're going to have a budget surplus every year.
Well, that never happens. I mean, Show me where that's ever happened.
Right.
I mean, and I'd add to this. I go back to this. You mentioned Jesse Ventura.
Yes.
When he was elected governor, we had a $23 billion budget.
Yes.
We now have a $52 billion budget in the 23 years since then. So I don't know what fully fund means. I don't know what. And by definition, we have $7 billion more than that.
Right.
So it's almost tripled. But I'll tell you what, here's another thing, and I'll just throw this out too. You don't ever get money for nothing. And more money from the state to locals is going to increase regulation. It's going to increase mandates. It's not going to go in the other direction. It's going to make all of those things worse, not better.
Agreed.
And all the things they whine about, they're advocating for right now.
Mm-hmm.
How about some grant programs to not do something?
How does that work?
Yeah, you don't make a complete street. We'll give you a grant for something.
Meaning a $50 bill or a...
I don't know.
That would be a grant.
Oh, okay. Oh, I get it. Well, that's fine. A few grants.
Yeah.
Okay, but maybe we'll come up with a different term for it then. But I don't know, Jay. I am really concerned because these people seem way too happy.
Yes. Yeah, well, you wave dollar bills in front of their face. Of course they're going to be happy.
And by the way, the governor didn't stop there. I wanted to... CBS Local reported that the governor also mentioned gun violence and climate change as part of his budget priorities, which is very weird. So,
well, we know from a lot of what President Biden's trying to do that there's going to have to be changes that happen to fall in line with the Green New Deal. So yes, there's going to be things that we need to do differently, which is going to cost us a lot more money, whether it pertains to electric cars or the sale of electric cars or...
we shouldn't have to put any of that because that's in the infrastructure bill. So none of that stuff should be relevant here to that.
Well, you and I both know that a lot of times these mandates are, if they're funded at all, they're only funded partially. Here's some money for this. Oh, you still need to pay another, $2 billion to do it. That's okay. That's all right. You'll figure it out.
Oh, that's great. Just great.
Not the word I would use, but
I'm being facetious,
yes.
Of course. But yeah, it's craziness. I mean, it's just beyond crazy. So. Unfortunately, my friends, and I will update this as time goes because, it's all your money. I mean, whether, you paid it somehow. Mm-hmm. Somehow citizens of Minnesota paid this money, and I fear, how it's going to be spent locally, whether that's schools, counties, cities, one-time money is a problem, and without fundamentally addressing the key issues that we have, whether it's the merry-go-round of money when it comes to transportation, whether it's the money we're wasting on transit, whether it's the lack of competition in schools, whether it's the state and LGA funding that totally backwards, totally unfairly. I think none of those problems. I'm going to make a prediction. None of those problems. None of the problems even get discussed.
Mm-hmm.
No,
not in any meaningful way. Sometimes they'll pay lip service to these things, but nothing gets done.
Jay, you're killing me.
Why is that?
Because I agree with you. That's
why.
So look for this surplus. I'll tell you what, you want to spend this on some climate change or some gun control. I don't know what that has to do with the budget surplus.
Yeah.
But it's probably something so he can get his way. By the way, strange story here. There's 4 people running on the Republican side for Attorney General?
I know of 2.
Okay.
There's 4, huh?
Yeah, somebody who got in named Jim Schultz. I don't know who that is.
Me neither.
Oh, well, doesn't matter. He's from Harvard, serves on the board of Frontline Foundation, a nonprofit group. That just doesn't sound good to me. So.
No.
So, never mind. It just sort of popped up on my Google feed here. But anyway, folks, before we get to the sign-off, sir, before we get to the Miracle Spring Water, just make sure that you go and YouTube that. Out on the table. Sprinkle on that Miracle Spring Water. Watch those bills go away.
Yeah, it don't work like that. You can't sell a miracle.
All right, if you say so.
Yep.
Well, if you want a sermon of a different kind, my friends, you've come to the right place. It's Community Solutions, once again, presents jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun, king of sting, and everything else that I say every week. I can't think of it right now. I'm too tired.
Goodness.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Bradley with the sign-off sermon.
Thank you, Andrew. Like I said earlier in the show, all of us should be contacting our state reps, our state senators, and saying, not a dollar. You have you have $7.7 billion of our money that you were not entitled to, and you are not entitled to spend it. That is my money, and I want it back. Not a dollar. Not a single dollar. And that's what we got to do. We can't just continue to allow these people to do this year in and year out, and bonding bills and passing almost a full budget. And we have to think like conservatives, for crying out loud, if that's what we are. But I fear that too many of us are a little too pragmatic, or possibly a little too left-leaning, not that conservative at all. And that's the problem with the Republican Party, is it's not that different from the Democrat Party. So we have to come up with a way to be able to see things in a way that we haven't before. I mean, it really takes redoing things from the ground up, because we've come to a place where what we're doing now is no longer serving us. It's causing problems. You know, maybe we're able to deal with the status quo a little bit better back in the 80s and the 90s, but we live in a different world. Ever since September 11th, 2001, everything has changed. And it hasn't gone back, and it's not going to go back unless we make a conscious effort to say, you know what, I'm tired of this, and we're going to change things. We're going to work hard to think about government from a different perspective, one in which the people matter, not just our ideas, and seeing the citizens of our state as some sort of piggy bank from which to float our projects. So there's what we've come down to. We have all of this debt. We have all of these projects, and we're still not secure. We've got to solidify our foundation. Things will get shaken, and they may get shaken soon. We have to be as strong and as tall and as financially solvent as possible, because that is the way that we change things. That is the way, by setting ourselves a good, strong, firm foundation, that we can walk through. You know, the places like Italy, you know, they talk about being resilient. And it is important to be resilient, but not the way they say it. No, we have to make sure that we've got the money as they come up, rather than burdening people with taxes for paying off the future. It's ridiculous. And we can't do it anymore. We can't continue to allow these people to come in with their Harvard degrees and their fancy ideas and reimagine the world in their own eyes and get that done. Because the way they've been taught only leads one place. For certain people to have all the money and all the power, for you to lose it. So, I want you to think about that a bit. Because the time has come. What are we going to do to change it? We can sit and complain about it all day. But what are we going to do differently? We're going to start a group? Are we going to write letters to the editor? Are we going to make sure that we're there in person, putting in the sweat equity in order to be able to build a house that is going to stay strong through troubled times? I believe that it's true. If we put our hands to the plow, we can win. But we've got to be willing to do it. We've got to be willing to work at it. We've got to be willing to put our brains together and come up with something that's better than this. And I know we fight an uphill battle because the people that are in power don't want to change. They like what they've got. Nice little system set up for themselves. We've got to work together. Well, we have time because time is waning. And we can certainly do this. We need your help, though. So you got to get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com because we have the ideas. We have been watching local government like a hawk for a long time. We know what's coming down the pike, but we need you. We need you to help take the word to the streets, to help take the word to the internet, to help take the word to our friends and family. We can do this, but it's going to take a little bit of elbow grease. So we call on you now because we trust in you to be able to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and do this. It's going to be good. If we're willing to put the work in, it is going to be good. Because we love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to get to work.
Take my life, caught a break between the lines. Don't let me be. If I get too caught